It does not get much better than this. UFC 328 from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. In the main event, middleweight championship on the line. First title defense for the champion, Khamzat Chimaev, against the former champion, Sean Strickland. In the co-main event, the new champion, Joshua Van, makes his first title defense against Tatsuro Taira, who looks to become the first ever UFC champion from Japan. 13 fights on this card. This main event has a lot around it, and I cannot wait to talk about it. Chimaev Strickland is a massive fight with, again, a lot of stuff going into it. We will talk about that later in the video. The fight week's going to be something. What can I say? I cannot wait. 13 fights on this card, folks. Before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more UFC content here on the channel. Best bets for this card comes out on Thursday. Also, Greedo plays the main channel, Daily MLB, Daily NBA Best Bets. Let's go. First, the 13 fights. We kick things off in the flyweight division. We open with Clayton Carpenter taking on Jose Ochoa again at 125. Clayton Carpenter coming off of back-to-back losses now going into this matchup against Ochoa, as he's lost 2 straight against Tygir Ulanbekov and Jafel Filo. I will tell you, Carpenter has fought some higher-level opponents in his UFC career. Comes in, beats Juan Camilo Ronderos in his debut fight. It was both Carpenter and Ronderos' UFC debuts. Then he goes and fights Lucas Rocha. After that, he wins, immediately gets booked against Ulanbekov. Difficult fight, he loses. And his last bout, again, a loss to Jafel Filo. Now, going into the fight, well, I guess before 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't say it's a bad loss. Jafel Filo just lost to Cody Durden on short notice. Durden was the one on short notice. Great. Durden, by the way, is fighting Ode Osborne on the McGregor card. Wow. Anyways, Jafel Filo again beats Clayton Carpenter, and it's a pretty quick victory. It ends in the first round. It's a first-round Kimura victory for Jafel Filo. He gets a takedown on Carpenter and eventually finds that sub, and the wrestling has been a little bit of a problem for Carpenter so far in his UFC career, right? He gets taken down by Juan Camilo Ronderos in his debut, but ultimately finds his back and subs him. But again, the wrestling is a struggle for him a little bit against Ulanbekov, and Jafel Filo takes him down and wins the fight from there. I will tell you, Carpenter can roll. He can, he will be very aggressive off his back looking for submissions, and he I don't think fought a bad fight against Ulanbekov, but ultimately was slightly outmatched. About Jose Ochoa, though, Ochoa coming off of a loss to Asu Almabayev. I thought it was a competitive fight. I know Almabayev wins it 2 rounds to 1 on one card and 3 rounds to nothing on the others. I thought it was much closer than a 30-27 victory for Almabayev. I personally scored it 29-28 for Almabayev. Again, it's much closer, though, than the pure scorecards indicate. Almabayev did not do much damage in the fight. Ochoa is the one actually trying to hurt the opponent. I will tell you that. Almabayev was just looking to wrestle and just looking to hug. Ochoa was pursuing to, actually throw strikes and land strikes. Again, Almabayev gets the win because of his control time, and that was a problem for Ochoa in the bout, keeping the fight off his back and off of the ground in general. But I don't really think we're going to see much of that in this fight. Again, Clayton Carpenter, if anything, Clayton Carpenter will be the aggressor in terms of a wrestling game in this bout, right? It's been a problem for both guys so far in their UFC careers, especially Ochoa's last bout against Almabayev, but it will be Clayton Carpenter pursuing the takedowns. As we saw in Ochoa's second UFC bout, he fought Cody Durden, who again just beat Jafel Filo a couple weeks ago. Durden's only success in that fight was taking Ochoa down. He found some success after getting beat on the feet. Eventually, right, second round starts, every round starts on the feet, and Ochoa knocks Durden out. I will tell you, Ochoa has got really good power for 125 and throws fairly hard, again, for being just a flyweight. If I'm Clayton Carpenter here, yes, there's a pathway on the feet, but the much easier pathway is on the ground wrestling. The thing is, Durden did struggle some in getting Ochoa down. It took him a couple attempts. Eventually, he did find that takedown in the first round, but it was not necessarily easy for him. And Asu, as the fight went on, was starting to trend in the wrong direction wrestling-wise against Ochoa. Again, did win the fight, but in that third round, Almabayev is slowing down a little bit, and Ochoa is taking over and fighting the fight more in his way and his style. Clayton Carpenter, again, not a bad wrestler, not something that he wants to do necessarily in every fight that he gets. I'm just thinking more so, I think Ochoa is better than him on the feet. I think eventually there's going to have to be an adjustment made if I am Clayton Carpenter. Okay, I'm going to have to wrestle this guy because I am getting beaten on the feet. Ultimately, I'm going to go with the Peruvian and Jose Ochoa to win. I think he does take this one by unanimous decision. I think there are going to be moments in this fight where Carpenter is able to land takedowns, but again, Ochoa, his ability to get back up to his feet, I think is going to be huge in this fight. Carpenter probably has a jiu-jitsu advantage, I will tell you that, but Ochoa's hands are just really good for 125. I think he's going to be a lot quicker than Clayton Carpenter, and ultimately, I do think Ochoa is just always going to be one step ahead of the American in this bout, and I'm going to go with Jose Ochoa to open up the card with a victory at 125. I'm going to go Ochoa by decision to beat Clayton Carpenter. That would be now Carpenter's third straight loss in the UFC. Don't know where his future is, but give me Ochoa to kick off the bout again at flyweight. On to our second bout of the night, we go to a matchup between Baisingar Susurkaev, my goodness, I want to say Susurkaev, I think it is Susurkaev. Susurkaev versus Georgian Santos. Susurkaev, right, training partner of Khamzat Chimaev, kill everybody. Again, that's one of Khamzat's guys. A Chechnyan, he does train at Killcliff, if I'm not mistaken, but again, is tight with Chimaev, won on the Contender Series, and then fought 4 days later at UFC 319, beat Eric Nolan in a fight where, well, it was a lot more difficult for Susurkaev than at least it was supposed to be. He was really hyped at the time, minus 1,200 favorite, and he was a minus 1,400 favorite in his second fight against Eric McConaughey. And here's the thing, Susurkaev's good. I don't think he doesn't deserve the hype. And I think, the hype is no longer where it once was because of how Susurkaev has struggled in his first couple fights in the UFC. And he's won. He beat Nolan, he beat Eric McConaughey, but my goodness, these fights are supposed to end a lot earlier. And maybe it's just, the UFC and the fan base in general just had too high of expectations for this guy. Susurkaev was undefeated going into the Contender Series. He had won fights in Fury UFC and an ACA in the past, and he beat Taira, I believe is the guy's name, on the Contender with a first-round TKO, lands a body kick and wins it. And again, it's the kill everybody mindset from Chechnya. I want to fight on 4 days' notice. I want to be on the same card as Khamzat. He gets it, beats Eric Nolan, but again, it's not. I can't say it's dominant. He wins, but it's not, it's not the Khamzat rise, right? Where Khamzat was just destroying, Reese McKee early in his UFC career, right? Where he was just running through these guys. Again, Susurkaev's not bad. He's nowhere near the level of Khamzat Chimaev. I will tell you that, not in the slightest. He's a good fighter. Is he going to be beaten eventually? Yes, 100%. But in this bout, no, he's not going to lose to Georgian Santos. I would be shocked. Susurkaev has decent hands, but again, he gets hit too much in the feet for me. His wrestling's good, it is, but it's not Khamzat level. There are pathways for Georgian Santos, I think there is, but I just think Georgian ultimately has to fight like a perfect fight. Because here's the thing, guys, if the fight's competitive on the feet, it's going to go to Susurkaev. Just because, and judges, I'm not saying this is going to specifically happen for this fight, but when a fighter is such a big favorite and the fight's just close, the judges are going to give it to the fighter that's a minus 500 or even bigger than that favorite. Because, he's dictating the fight, right? He doesn't have to take that many chances to win it. He's supposed to win. And I am kind of comparing that to Jacob Malkoun and GM3 just a couple days ago. That fight was atrocious. Malkoun, I believed, won, but my goodness, that dude was sorry in that fight. And I get it, double your pay. I can't hate on the guy for that, but whatever. Mearshart looked awful, and Malkoun just wanted to jab and kind of just, be scared and charge in all fight long. It was awful. Anyways, all I'm saying is if the fight is close, Susurkaev will win. There's a chance it does go to the decision. You look at Georgian Santos' 2 fights in the UFC. He does lose to Aussie Diaz. I will tell you, fight's competitive. They're trading the entire time. I thought Diaz got the better of him. And then Santos' next fight is against Danny Barlow. I, at one point in time, had a lot of, hype around Barlow and a lot of hope for Barlow. Thought Georgian Santos did piece him up at the end of the bout. Again, Santos is not a bad striker, but I think Susurkaev should get the win. He is one of the bigger favorites on this card. I believe, is he the biggest favorite on this card? He might be. Khamzat, no, I think he is the biggest favorite on this card. Sorry, I forgot. Atiba Gutierrez on this one. But Susurkaev should win. If he does get into any trouble on the feet, he will wrestle. We'll see if he tests his hands. Jordan Santos, I'm not really concerned about Jordan Santos knocking anybody out. He's just one of these guys who is just kind of like rock'em sock'em robots, where he'll just keep throwing the feet. He's got a decent chin, and he's just willing to throw back and forth. Like we've seen all of his fights on the Zuffa banner, under the Zuffa banner, have kind of been the same. The Will Curie fight, Curie's trying to take him down. Santos is able to keep the fight on the feet. He's more than willing to make it a back-and-forth striking fight. The Aussie Diaz fight is just, again, pure striking for 15 minutes. Santos loses to Diaz. Again, don't love that, but it's a high output fight. It opened up the card at UFC 313. Joe Rogan was amazed by Ozzy Diaz, and well, Joe Rogan's going to get a chance to watch Ozzy Diaz on this card too. But ultimately, if Ozzy Diaz is beating you, Bisangar Susurkaev should be able to beat you as well. And if Susurkaev lands the shots that Diaz lands, he should eventually knock out Georgian Santos. I'm going to go second round knockout for Susurkaev. I think it's like a late second round TKO, but it's again one of these fights that I believe you're going to watch and say, okay, like, yeah, he wins, but Santos clipped him. It's not, it's not dominant. I will tell you, maybe Susurkaev takes him down. I think there's a definite advantage down there, but honestly, the Jordan Santos jiu-jitsu is supposed to be pretty decent. He stuffs the takedowns against Will Curie. I don't know. I think it will be a striking bout. I think Susurkaev is going to feel comfortable in striking with him, and I think he's going to be winning, but I think Santos is going to be kind of right there until eventually Susurkaev unloads and kind of pulls away eventually with the TKO. So I'm going to go at Chechnya's own Bisangar Susurkaev to win this bout, picking up his third UFC victory. Second round TKO win over Georgian Santos. On to our third fight of the night in the featherweight division. Pat Sabatini takes on William Gomis, two UFC fighters who have great records up until this point. Sabatini, an 8-2 UFC fighter, and William Gomis, who at one point in time was the luckiest UFC fighter on the roster, 5-1. It's a good fight between two guys who again have really great records, but two guys who the UFC has been kind of hesitant on pushing. Well, I guess Gomis, they've pushed quite a bit in France. He's always found himself on big French cards, coming off a win in France in his last bout against Robert Hachula. He won it by decision, but Gomis, let's just say, is nowhere near entertaining. Most of his fights are kind of dull. He will have some exceptions, but for the most part, Gomis is just kind of boring. He doesn't have the highest output on the feet. He wrestles, and I don't know, just he wins fights with like 40 significant strikes. Cool, get your money, but he's finished one guy in the UFC, and it's Yanis Gamori, who was one of the biggest underdogs in UFC history in his second fight in the promotion. Is what it is. Sabatini is 8-2 in the UFC, which kind of surprised me, honestly. I've watched the Sabatini career. I'm just kind of surprised he has that great of a record in the UFC, because it doesn't always feel like that. But I guess he's now won, 4 fights in a row up until this point? 3 fights in a row? Sabatini's won 3 in a row after losing to Diego Lopez, where Lopez just blitzed him and knocked him out in 90 seconds, expectedly. Since then, though, 3 straight wins. Picked up a huge win over JSP, Jonathan Pierce, who at one point in 2020 I thought was going to be great. I know he lost to Joe Lozon, but whatever. Sabatini then beat Joanderson Brito, who Gomis also beat, but we'll talk about that in a second. The difference in how Sabatini beats Brito and Gomis beats Brito. And then Sabatini's last bout does beat Chepe Mariscal, or Jefe Mariscal, who it's a great win, beating Mariscal by decision, who was undefeated at the time in the UFC. Sabatini shuts him down and just out-wrestles him the entire time. I was optimistic in what Mariscal could do in that bout. Sabatini just takes him down and basically holds him down the entire fight. I will tell you, Sabatini's a problem. He's 35. He's not a guy the UFC is really trying to push because he's not that entertaining. He wrestles and he's got decent jiu-jitsu, but ultimately he's a guy that just kind of controls you, and he'll look to take advantage of, he'll look to jump on your back. If a spot presents itself for a submission, he will take it, but ultimately a guy that is just looking to control you and wrestle you for the entire 15 minutes. It's a difficult proposition for a lot of guys, and it's a fight that a lot of guys don't want to take because he has such a great wrestling game, and his ability to drag you back down like we saw in the Mariscal fight is very great. Right, his 2 losses in the UFC, Damon Jackson in 2022 and Diego Lopez in 2023. What you have to do to beat Sabatini is, you have to be a better wrestler than him, and then you have to be able to keep the fight standing against him. That's what both Damon Jackson and Diego Lopez were able to do, but both those wins happened in the first 90 seconds of each fight. Does William Gomis possess the skill set to beat Pat Sabatini? The answer to that question is absolutely not. No. He's not a good enough defensive wrestler to keep Sabatini off of him, just in terms of just pure takedown-wise. Gomis is not good enough to do so. I've seen Francis Marshall take down and have success against William Gomis. Joanderson Brito had success taking down William Gomis. Haider Amil took down William Gomis, albeit not for very long. Robert Hachula took down William Gomis. Sabatini will do the same exact thing. If Gomis can keep it standing, he's going to win. Gomis's kickboxing, is it the most entertaining? No. Does he have the most power? No. Is he gonna, find you a, highlight knockout? No. His only knockout or TKO victory in the UFC, his only finish in the UFC is a body kick finish in the 3rd round lead against Yanis Gamori. I believe that fight was in France. I feel like that fight was in France. It was on Gunn versus Spivak. He's not a finisher. I will say the Haider Amil fight was high output. It was probably the best Gomis fight we've seen, but not a guy, again, who you're concerned about, one shot he's going to knock out Sabatini, and ultimately that's the way I believe you have to beat Sabatini. You still have his takedowns, sure, but he's going to be persistent in trying to get those takedowns. But if you have the power like a Diego Lopez to put him away, yeah, that's how you win the fight. Gomis does not possess the knockout power to put Sabatini away, and Sabatini's going to be more than comfortable walking through the shots of Gomis in order to pursue yet another takedown attempt. So it's going to be try again for Pat Sabatini, and there's nothing that Gomis is throwing on the other side that's going to really stop Sabatini that's nothing that's going to stop Sabatini from continuing on with his game plan. That's pursuing takedowns and, holding Gomis down for as long as possible. So for me, this is a pretty easy one. Pat Sabatini is going to win it by decision. I think the Mariscal fight was, again, is it entertaining? Absolutely not. The fight was awful, but it shows you what Sabatini can do against guys who just aren't on his level. And Mariscal is a better wrestler than William Gomis. Gomis is going to have a lot of trouble in this fight, man. Trust me. Sabatini is going to dominate. I'd argue 30-26 for Pat Sabatini against William Gomis. On to our fourth fight of the night, we go to the middleweight division. Likely a knockout's coming in this fight, we'll see. Roman Kopylov versus Marco Tulio. I feel like someone's getting knocked out here. I don't know. At least on Tapology, most of the people picking this fight are taking it by decision on either side of the coin. I just feel like something's got to give here and someone's going to get knocked out. I will roll with this. Guys, I've been kind of looking more into Kopylov this fight week because Roman Kopylov's an interesting case. This is a guy who had a lot of hype around him after he beat Josh Fremd. But in going into his fight in Anaheim against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez at UFC 298, he was, I think, 4-1 in the UFC. His only loss was his debut against Albert Duraev, and he was knocking guys out. The Ribeiro knockout was huge in Utah. And he goes into the Fluffy Hernandez fight, and it's a clash of styles, right? Kopylov, a kickboxer, Hernandez, the pressure-heavy wrestler with, with good grappling, and as we saw, Fluffy completely overwhelmed him. Actually, going back to that fight, I took Hernandez specifically by second-round submission, and it cashed. But since that fight, I've not been impressed with Kopylov, right? A lot of his wins are going to be finishes, and that's why I'm kind of shocked that most people are taking this fight by decision. I know the last two losses for Kopylov have been decisions against Paulo Costa and Gregory Rodriguez, but in most of the fights that Kopylov wins, he is finding finishes, and I get it. The Chris Curtis finish was with 1 second left, and Curtis get a little bit screwed there. I probably should have gone to his scorecards, but whatever. Kopylov is a guy that's going to pursue the finish. He is going to throw head kicks, right? He's going to work the body. He's a good kickboxer, but he's 35 now, which this is what I was trying to get at here. Or he's going to be 35 soon. I think he's 34 right now, but he will be 35. Okay, he turns 35 today. Tomorrow is his 35th birthday. There we go. So he's just turning 35. The point I was trying to make here about diving deeper into Kopylov, I thought he was much younger. Truthfully, I thought Kopylov was a lot younger than he is. Because honestly, this does not look like a 35-year-old, the picture we have here. That does not look like a guy who's 35, nor does that look like a guy that's 33 or even 32. He looks like he's just about to turn 30. So I will say for Kopylov, he looks great for his age, but you're not getting that much better at 35. I'm not saying he's peaked, but you're not improving your skill set that much at this age. Marco Tulio is coming off a loss where he just did lose to CLD. I will tell you, Christian Leroy Duncan is really good. He's good. Is he really good? I don't know. He just beat Dolidze, but couldn't finish Dolidze, so I don't know. CLD making his way up, okay? We're finally seeing the CLD we saw in Cage Warriors, I guess. Anyways, Tulio coming off the loss, Christian Leroy Duncan did win 2 straight fights prior to that, where he knocked out both Ihor Potieria and Tresean Gore. He had a knockout finish with a spinning back kick on the Contender Series, and that's why I'm kind of shocked that most people are picking this fight to end by decision. I could see a world where you see just 2 kickboxers kind of standing on the outside and just, looking at each other the entire fight, and we see just this for 15 minutes. I mean, I could see it, honestly. Both guys kind of cancel each other out in terms of power, and just neither guy's willing to really take a big chance in this fight. I'll be honest, I could see that. But I think someone's getting knocked out. I think it's going to be Kopylov. I think Kopylov's going to get finished here. I'm going to go Marco Tulio. The way Tulio fights, I think eventually he is going to break Roman Kopylov. And Kopylov coming off back-to-back L's, where are we at? I know what you're thinking. Well, Costa couldn't finish him. Costa got close to finishing. Costa dropped him. And the Gregory Rodriguez fight, Rodriguez is winning quite a bit on the feet against Kopylov to the point where Kopylov turns into a wrestler. And I get it. Rodriguez has good hands and Rodriguez does hit hard, but I just don't think Roman's really trending in the right direction. And I think eventually now here, with this potentially being his 3rd consecutive L in a row, I do think Tulio is going to find that shot to put him away. I mean, Marco Tulio, 10 knockouts in his career. I mean, he's won 3 fights by decision. Kopylov, 12 knockouts in his career. He's won 2 fights by decision. I mean, something's got to give and someone's going to get knocked out. I get it, Tulio hasn't fought the level of competition Kopylov's fought, because Kopylov, just fought Rodriguez and fought Costa, and hell, even fought Chris Curtis. But I do think Tulio kind of overtakes Kopylov in the rankings here. I know neither of these guys are in the top 15, but in terms of, well, Kopylov's 35, I don't know how much better he's really getting, and Tulio's going to be throwing a lot at Kopylov in this fight. And yes, Tulio did just get finished in November. Again, CLD's a good fighter. I will tell you that CLD's good. When CLD lands, he does hit hard. Tulio, I just was really impressed with in his fights against Poteria, against Tresean Gore, and I do need to say now, the win over UC Belgrade continues to age like fine wine. Belgrade now continues to win in the UFC, just beat Mansour Abdul Malik. Belgrade legitimately maybe fighting Israel Adesanya in his next fight. It would not shock me. Belgrade, by the way, only 33 out of Teixeira MMA and Fitness at 185. Just watch out. He's 6'6" at 185. It's absurd. Watch out for him. Marco Tulio beat UC Belgrade. On the Contender Series, I believe that's before, like, just in terms of me watching my assessment of Belgrade, before Belgrade really figured it out in mixed martial arts, because I don't really think he figured it out until the Bekoyev fight. But regardless, that's a huge win for Tulio looking back at it, and I do think he is going to be on a pathway to win this fight against Roman Kopylov. I think eventually he's going to land that shot. I'm going to go second round TKO here for Marco Tulio. He throws with too much intent to not finish Kopylov here. And I'll say at the same time, like, if Kopylov wins, I think he'll land that shot against Tulio as well. Like, I think someone's getting TKO'd here. I'm going to go with Tulio, though, picking up the victory by second round TKO, again, against the Russian Roman Kopylov. On to our fifth fight of the night, we go to the lightweight division as Jim Miller, A10 Miller, is back. The all-time winningest fighter in the UFC in terms of most victories ever, and the most fights in UFC history as well for Jim Miller. This will be walk number... Oh, I need to do the math here. He's 38-19, though, as a professional mixed martial arts fighter. This is Jim Miller's. He's got no contest in there, so this is walk 48 for Jim Miller. My goodness. 48 UFC fights. I believe Miller's going to retire at 50, I think. He just needs, 2 more after this. I know, again, he's 42 now, right? 42 years of age. I do think they're going to give him 2 more fights regardless of what happens here and even in potentially his next fight. I know the joke is, he wants to be around for UFC 400. Unfortunately, that's not happening because that will be in 2030 or 2031. Yeah, Jim Miller is not going to be fighting at 48. He doesn't have Randy Couture type longevity. And Miller's just been in a million fights. But here he goes again. He's taking on Jared Gordon. Yes, the end is near for Jim Miller, 100%. Now, I could see a world where this is his last fight, but I have not seen anything yet about it, this fight, really being Miller's last one. Now, again, how much is Jim Miller, being covered? Not much, but yeah, last thing I saw was Jim Miller says, this is a Reddit post, but still, I believe this is from an interview. Jim Miller says he would like to get to 50 bouts and 30 UFC victories. Yeah, again, that's completely in play. Now, he would still need to win 3 more fights in his last 3, but we'll see. I think definitely he will get 50 fights. We will see if he gets those 30 victories. Currently, right, still in first place in the all-time wins list. Charles Oliveira is going to probably overtake him eventually. And I would argue Kevin Holland's probably going to pass both these guys eventually too. I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's Kevin Holland, but Holland fights 4 times a year, and Holland has, oh goodness. Sorry, I need to look this up. 18 victories in the UFC already, I think it is. I think Holland's got 18 wins in the promotion. With his last win over Randy Brown, he wants to fight again in the next couple months. He's got 16, does Holland, but he's 33. Holland fights 7 more years. He fights 4 times for the next 7 years. That's 28 more fights. Yeah, he's going to break the record eventually, just because of his activities. He's going to be like Jim Miller, just at 85/70, 70/85. Anyways, huge spot for Jim Miller to pick up another victory, though, against Jared Gordon. Gordon is coming off a loss in his last fight. This is a fight that was put together somewhat short notice. It's about a 3-week camp, I will say, for both guys going into this bout. Gordon coming off his loss in 2025 to Rafa Garcia, who is coming now off a win over the great Ape Hernandez, who, again, weird line movement in every fight that he has, but, let's not talk about that. Jared Gordon, before the Garcia fight, did knock out Thiago Moises. It was an impressive finish. Knocks out Moises in the first round with an overhand. But, I mean, Jared Gordon has traded wins and losses for quite a bit now. He's traded wins and losses dating back to 2021, and if you want to play the trend, well, Jared Gordon is up for a loss. Again, does that tell the entire tale? No, but yeah, I mean, since 2021, he beats Joe Solecki, loses to Grant Dawson, beats Leonardo Santos in the Unk fight, loses to Patty. Did he really lose? Whatever. Not really, but still he won. Jared Gordon beats Mark Madsen, loses to Nasrat Haqparast, beats Thiago Moises, and then loses to Rafa Garcia. I kind of want to pick Jim Miller. I'll be honest with you, I kind of do. I I just have a feeling he's able to tag him. I don't know why. And like I get like if people are picking Jim Miller, expecting him to take down Jared Gordon. I don't know. That Unk Grandpa Power, man. He's at home. I don't know. I kind of want to take Jared Gordon because here's the thing. Like, okay, if Jared Gordon beats Jim Miller, it's probably just gonna be a striking fight. And he's probably just gonna decision him. I think. Like, yeah, he knocked out Moises. Moises isn't looking great at this point of his career, and I know Gordon knocked out Madsen too. But Jim Miller, oddly enough, Jim Miller at 42 with all these fights does not have a bad chin. Miller's been knocked out 2 times ever. The last time he was knocked out, it's a while ago, right? Yeah, Cowboy knocked him out 12 years ago. I know what you can say. Oh, well, eventually that damage is going to, add up. Sure. But, I mean, he fought Bobby Green. Bobby Green beat the shit out of Jim Miller, and he just kept walking forward. It's just, can Miller land that shot against Gordon at 42? Probably not. I'll tell you this. Like, I want to take Miller. I'm going to have to lay off it, though. I'm going to have to go Gordon. Like, everything, like, statistically speaking, and just watching these fights and just watching both these guys fight coming into this one, Gordon's the higher level fighter. Like, yes, Miller could catch him, Miller could take him down, find success there, but everything kind of shows us that Gordon should win. I want to see. I'm gonna go Gordon by decision, by the way. I want to see Jim Miller fight straight up Contender Series guys, not these high level Contender Series guys. Contender Series guys who have lost back-to-back fights in the UFC. Let Jim Miller run up the record. I don't care. I want Jim Miller to get those 30 victories. Let him fight the worst lightweights on roster. And you know what? Bring back Tony Ferguson so he can fight Jim Miller for all I care. Let's get Miller to 30 wins and send him off in a great way at like 44, 45, probably 44 when he actually retires. I doubt this is his last one, but just watch out for it. Gordon by decision. On to our next bout, staying at 155, we've got Grant Dawson taking on Mateusz Rebecki. This is a good fight. Grant Dawson continues to win fights in the UFC up until his last one where he ran into Manuel Torres, and Manuel Torres, oh boy, knocks out Grant Dawson in the first round. Grant Dawson prior to that fight was 11-1 in the UFC and never really got big time respect, never really, got big time bookings and had to fight a guy like Manuel Torres because again, he's not the most entertaining. That was a fight in which Dawson was a minus 250 favorite, and he loses. So now can he get back on the winning ways after his second loss in the UFC and second knockout loss? If you remember, he fought a main event earlier in his UFC career in the Apex and got knocked out by King Bobby Green. And now, again, he's coming back off a loss in his last bout on the December pay-per-view against Torres. He's getting Mateusz Rebecki here. The name of the game for Rebecki is, can you stuff a takedown? Now, Rebecki's lost 3 of his last 4. This is a guy who was a high-level fighter, very high-level fighter on the regional scene in Poland. At FEN, he was the guy in that promotion. His walkout in Poland was absolutely absurd. Just go back and watch some of his entrances coming out before his fights in Poland. It's absurd. That crowd went crazy every single time he came out, defended his belt out there, I think 6 or 7 times. Anyways, he's obviously debuted in the UFC in 2023. Fought some guys who weren't at the highest level. Fought Nick Fior and Roosevelt Roberts. Beat Luik Radzhabov, which is a good victory, but then ran into Diego Ferreira, lost a fight that he was winning early, but just ran out of gas in. Then fought Murtabek Orbalai, did win it in a close fight by split decision. Lost to Chris Duncan in a fight where he had Duncan at plus money, and then just lost to Ludovic Klein by majority decision. I will tell you, every Rebecki fight is extremely close. But the name of the game here, I mean, you can say anything you want about Rebecki and his fights being really fun and his high output fights. Can he stuff the takedowns from Grant Dawson? That's the name of the game. Can he keep the fight on the feet? Because Grant Dawson against Manuel Torres shot a couple times early, couldn't get it. Manuel Torres finishes him. Now, last time Dawson got knocked out, he responds by beating Joe Solecki and winning a decision. I will tell you, his win over Joe Solecki, though, and his, just with all due respect to Joe Solecki, that was much more of a layup fight coming off of an L than Mateusz Rebecki is. I will tell you, Rebecki has lost 3 out of 4 fights, but we know how high level, we know how skilled he is. And we know Rebecki can stuff takedowns. Rebecki's got a good wrestling game in his own right. Yes, Ferreira took him down in their fight, but that was more so, again, Rebecki just wearing out the end of the fight. And literally, Diego Ferreira could have done anything to Mateusz Rebecki in the 3rd round of that fight in St. Louis in May of 2024, and he would have been successful in doing so. So I don't really put much into cause Diego Ferreira just easily taking down Rebecki in that fight. The Orbalai fight, back and forth, yes, Murtabek gets some takedowns, but that's, again, not something that was, Orbalai was successful in those takedown attempts, but it's not like the fight was, consistently just fought on the ground. I mean, that was more so just a 3rd round thing where Orbalai found a takedown and, Rebecki took down Orbalai at the same exact time too. On the feet, I'll tell you, Rebecki will beat Grant Dawson. If the fight's in the feet just straight up for 15 minutes, he will win. I'm not just saying that because of Dawson's last result. It's just he's not a great striker. He doesn't throw with, yeah, he throws, but he's not the crispest striker, I guess we can say. And Rebecki will definitely have advantages on the feet. On the ground, though, wrestling-wise, I think Dawson will have an advantage, but is he that much better than Rebecki to the point where he's just able to out-wrestle him for 15 minutes? I don't know. Man, because Rebecki in some of these fights recently, like, has become the aggressive wrestler in his own right? 2 fights that he loses to both Ludovic Klein and Chris Duncan, he's the one pursuing takedowns. I do have to also ask, like, just how good is Mateusz Rebecki? You know, again, like, he's fighting high-level guys and he's competitive in these fights, but he's not able to get over the hump against a Chris Duncan and against a Ludovic Klein. But at the same time, how good is Grant Dawson? Dawson's best win in the UFC is what? Demirs Magulov? Diego Ferreira, sure, but I mean, how old was Diego Ferreira when that fight happened? 40? I know Diego Ferreira beat Rebecki, but I just have to ask those questions. I'm going to go Mateusz Rebecki. I think going into the week, I'm not going to lie to you, I was expecting to take Grant Dawson. I'm gonna take Rebecki here. I think Rebecki can remain competitive enough with the wrestling. I think he can keep the fight on the feet. And if the fight's standing, I think Rebecki's eventually gonna find that shot to put away Dawson. I think it'll be more of an accumulation on the feet. Because again, I'm not that high at all on Grant Dawson's striking game. And yes, Manuel Torres is really good. Do not get me wrong. Manuel Torres is good. He's got a lot of different, weapons on the feet. He was supposed to fight Beneil Dariush before, he had to pull out and Salkid got the fight. Which again, if you fight Dariush and you're an up-and-comer, that means the UFC really likes you and you have a lot of potential. But I'm going to go Rebecki here. I'm going to go Rebecki here to beat Grant Dawson. I think he stuffs the takedowns. I think Dawson's going to be stuck on the feet with this guy, and eventually Rebecki is going to put him down. I'm going to go second round TKO victory for Mateusz Rebecki. He gets to be a pure striker in this bout for the most part. Again, still has to be sound defensively with his wrestling, but he gets a chance here to really work his hands. So I'm going to go Rebecki to win the fight by second round TKO. On to our next fight in the welterweight division. Huge fight, and a really good fight in my opinion. Joel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov. Phenomenal fight on the prelims. Should be the featured prelim, but the UFC wants Atiba Gautier in that spot, and we'll talk about Atiba Gautier in a second. The UFC is remaining persistent on the Atiba Gautier thing, and I understand why. Gautier, I think, still has a very high potential, but we'll get to him in a couple minutes. El Fenomeno, Joel Alvarez, shares a nickname with Kelton Vieira. I don't think Vieira has that nickname anymore, but used to. Joel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov. Joel Alvarez, 23-3, 8-2 in the UFC, coming off a victory against Vicente Luque. He was booked against Benoit Saint-Denis in Montreal in May of 2025. Unfortunately for Alvarez, he had to pull out of the fight, and then he got Luque instead. He wins the fight. I will tell you, I was a little disappointed in the fight that Alvarez fought because I think a lot of people expected Alvarez to put away Luque. Now, again, Vicente in his own right is coming off a win in his last bout in Miami against Kelvin Gastelum. It is 2026 Gastelum, but good for Luque in that regard. Alvarez, he wins. Again, though, you just felt like Alvarez should have put away Luque. As a minus 700 favorite, you expected a little bit more. Alvarez wins, and there's no debate on whether or not he actually takes the bout or not. It's just, again, it's not a dominant... It's just not a finish that we wanted. Fight prior to that, he beat Dakar Close, beat Elves Brenner before that fight as well, but he gets a really tough out in Yaroslav Amosov. Yaroslav Amosov, 29-1 as a professional, former Bellator champion, won the championship against Douglas Lima, defended against the interim champion and winner yesterday of the PFL Sioux Falls main event, Logan Storley. By the way, how about Florem Zindelli just grabbing the cage at all points imaginable in the first round? But Amosov defended the belt against Storley, then ran into the ass-kicking machine in Jason Jackson. Got knocked down in the third round of their Bellator championship fight. Jackson at one point was booked against Lorenz Larkin on the MVP card. He now got Jeff Creighton instead. I'll be honest, I just found out about that as I'm recording this video. Interesting. It's a fight that Jackson should be able to win. Creighton is an Ultimate Fighter guy, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, Amosov doesn't fight again for the Bellator banner. He goes, slash PFL banner. He goes to fight in CFFC, beats Curtis Millender, then makes his UFC debut against the experienced veteran and Neil Magny, easily takes him down and submits Magny in the very first round. Amosov's good. What can I say? I mean, you don't win 28 fights before your UFC debut out of nowhere, right? And I get it, right? The Jason Jackson fight sucked. Jason Jackson at his peak in Bellator is really good. But Amosov, I will tell you, beat some really good guys in Bellator. Logan Storley is still winning fights in the PFL. Douglas Lima, I know Douglas Lima at the end of his career wasn't very good, but in 2021, beating Douglas Lima was a big deal. And the way Yaroslav beat Douglas Lima, dominance. Hell, Yaroslav does have 2 wins over Storley. He beat him the first time by split decision in a really close fight, but the second fight made the adjustments even more so and beat Storley better than I guess he did in the first fight. Joel Alvarez, I think, is better on the feet. I know Joel Alvarez is better on the feet, but I will tell you again, I was a little underwhelmed with the striking game out of Alvarez against Luque. I just felt like there were more spots where he should have just straight up gone for it. And I know he gets the takedown in the second round. He holds Luque down in the second round. And again, he wins the fight easily. I just would have liked to see a little bit more. Pure wrestling, who's better, Yaroslav Amosov versus Joel Alvarez? It's Yaroslav Amosov, guys. It is. Like, Alvarez has seen success wrestling in his own right, like, offensive wrestling. Mark DeCasey took this guy down. And Mark DeCasey took him down a couple times. And yes, Joel Alvarez has good jiu-jitsu, 100%. That's how he submitted DeCasey. He submitted him on the ground. Obviously, he subbed him on the ground. But it was DeCasey's wrestling that got the fight down on the ground. And then Alvarez eventually subbed him from there. I think Amosov's too good to get subbed by Alvarez. I just think so. I think Amosov's top control and his top pressure once he gets that takedown is just going to be too much for Alvarez to throw up something off his back or sweep or reverse Yaroslav Amosov. Striking-wise, I think Alvarez does have the advantage. Do I think Alvarez is going to one-shot knock him out? Likely not. Likely not. I mean, if he couldn't one-shot knock out Vicente Luque, he probably can't do it to Amosov. I get a flying knee to Close, and he knocked out Brenner. Yeah, sure, that's there. Again, something flashy could definitely put Amosov away, but the odds of that, I don't think are the highest. I think we see Amosov wrestle, and I think Amosov probably just grounds Alvarez the entire fight, and I think Yaroslav's going to win a decision. I really think he's just going to ground Alvarez, take away Alvarez's weapons on the feet. He's a huge lightweight, don't get me wrong, is Alvarez, 6'3", with a 77-inch reach. He's a huge welterweight, excuse me. But I think Yaroslav's able to take him down, and I don't think Joel's able to get off his, subs off his back against the guy with the top pressure of a Yaroslav Amosov. Amosov, the Ukrainian, gets his 30th professional victory here with a win at UFC 328. I'm going Amosov by decision to ground and out-wrestle the Spaniard in Joel Alvarez. On to our featured prelim, we go to the middleweight division. We're still doing this, aren't we? No, again, I understand why the Atiba Gautier thing is a thing. I get it. The thing is a thing. That's great English. I understand. I just don't think he should be the featured prelim. Now, I think Atiba Gautier is going to be really good. I'll be honest. I had put the future top 5 tag on Gautier before his last fight. I'm going to take that away from the time being. I think he's going to be a top 10 fighter. No, you know what? Sorry. No, he's still going to be a top 5 fighter. I keep forgetting he's going to end up at light heavyweight. Now, here's the thing. Atiba Gautier, he's 24. I just need to ask, is Atiba Gautier actually 24? I'm just putting that out there, guys. I'm just asking. It's like the whole joke around, the guys from the Dominican Republic when they play baseball. I literally just, an hour ago watched a Trevor Bauer vlog where he's talking about, or, there's no-hitter video where he's talking about, when Jose Ramirez got called up to the Indians at the time for Cleveland, no one knew how old he was. They were joking that, he's really 30 when he got called up instead of 20. Again, I'm just saying, Atiba Gautier to me does not look like a guy who's 24 years old. Just look at the screen now. Does this human being look like he's 24? I don't think he does, but maybe he actually is. And again, I'm not really I am questioning it. I think he probably is 24, but I'm just putting that out there. The reason why I bring this up, and the reason why it is important, is because if Atiba is actually 24, and I'm going to say he is, if he's 24 years of age, which that's what he's listed as, my goodness, yes, this guy is going to be really great. But the reason I bring it up, because if Atiba's actually 30, okay, and this whole thing about Manute Bol, no one knew how old Manute Bol was, right? Again, if he's actually 24, this dude is going to be a monster in 5 years up at 205. But if he's not 24 and he's 29, he's not actually going to go up to 205 because likely he's going to continue to fight at 85 because if you're 24, you're still somewhat growing. And we've seen this with Chase Hooper and even Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira, these guys who start their careers at 45 and they keep on moving up in divisions because, well, they just can't make the weight anymore. Same thing's going to happen to Atiba Gautier eventually. He's not going to continue to make 85. The guy is 6'4" with an 81-inch reach. You've seen the picture of him next to Sean Strickland. He towers over Sean Strickland and they fight in the same weight class. So Gautier is eventually going to wind up at 205. It's just a matter of when will that happen. In 5 years, likely, yes, he's going to be top 5 because light heavyweight is just so weak. It's a way weaker division than 85 is. Again, I understand why the UFC is still doing this with Gautier because the potential is there. He's from Cameroon, right? Yeah, sure, he gets the Ngannou comparisons because they're both from the same country. Gautier is, he hits like a truck. He's somewhat built like Ngannou too in terms of the dude's just so physically strong. And he's 4-0 in the UFC. I'll be honest, they've given him cupcakes so far, but his first 3 fights, no problems. Jose Medina, who just got sent out into the UFC octagon and get chinned every single fight, knocked him out. Robert Valentin knocked him out in the first round. Valentin, though, just picked up a huge victory, one that, by the way, we just called. Want to put that out there. We told you he was going to beat that fraud, Julian LeBlanc. Gautier then beats Tristan Vines, making his UFC debut. And then the Andre Puliev fight. He beats Andre Puliev. Is it an impressive victory? Nope. I thought Gautier won every single round. And Gautier, early in the fight, drops Puliev. Sorry, I thought 1 and 2. Third round, it's close. There's a pathway for Gautier. It doesn't matter. Gautier wins the first 2 rounds, but again, he drops Puliev in both the first 2 rounds. The output is awful. The volume is awful. He's just headhunting the entire time. And yeah, he's so powerful, he drops Puliev in the first 2 rounds. I'm concerned about this guy going 15 minutes, consistently, and I'm concerned about this guy against elite level strikers. Got kickboxers who can stay on the outside, work the body, purely out volume him, and just be in and out all fight long. Weird fight. Atiba Gautier would really struggle with Michael Venom Page. Now, MVP's boring as hell, I understand, point fighting, whatever. I don't even know if he's going to get another UFC fight. But MVP he wouldn't do nasty things because he wouldn't knock out Gautier. But Gautier would not know how to hit Michael Venom Page. Because Michael Venom Page, and again, this is a very extreme example because MVP, again, is just one of a kind in terms of what he does. But MVP would just be in and out the entire fight. MVP would just be jabbing, and throw his weird cross too. But Gautier would not be able to catch up at all. He is very slow. He kind of chases his opponents. And, okay, I'll tell you, a guy like Ozzy Diaz, Gautier is going to knock out. Diaz got knocked out by Mingyang Zhang, got knocked out by Joe Pyfer. High level guys, sure. And he's got a win against George and Santos so far in the UFC. But this is an easy bout for Diaz. For Gautier. Diaz and Gautier were booked at UFC 320. That's the fight where Gautier ended up fighting Tristan Vines instead because Diaz pulled out. So they've been wanting to make this fight for a while, and they've wanted Diaz to be the sacrificial lamb for Gautier for a while as well. Again, Diaz is not the guy to beat Gautier, but there are fighters and better strikers that will. We'll see again. But here's the thing. That's the beauty of Gautier only being 24. He's only getting better. And sure, the Puliev fight is a learning experience, and a learning experience in which he still won. So now he gets to come out here, and if the fight goes deeper in the bout, and if the fight goes deeper in the 15 minutes, then he's used to it now. We'll see. I think he's going to knock out Ozzy Diaz in the first round, though. He'll blitz him. Diaz is going to get backed up, as we've seen before in the past from him. And Gautier will throw a big combo and knock him out. That's my prediction here. Atiba Gautier, first round knockout victory against Ozzy Diaz. Diaz, by the way, 35 years old. Gautier, 24. Yikes. On to our next fight, we move to the main card opener. The Unks, let's go. It's an unction. King Green takes on Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens. Big time, fun fight. I'm not gonna say it's a big time fight. It's a fun fight. And it's a fight that I am glad they are doing on this card. Yes, Jeremy Stevens has a chance to break the losses record in UFC history. If I'm not mistaken, he is currently tied for most losses in UFC history with one Clay the Carpenter Guida. Now, I think Miller, if he loses, would be tied with them as well momentarily before Stevens' fight. But anyways, Jeremy Stevens is back in the UFC. If you remember, this is Jeremy Stevens, the hardest hitting 145 pounder in the world, obviously, but he went to BKFC after being released by the UFC or cut by the UFC at the end of 2021, in which last fight, he lost to Mateusz Gamrot, went to the PFL, lost to Clay Collard, beat Miles Price, lost to Natan Schultz, goes to BKFC after doing some boxing, goes to BKFC, beat Jimmy Rivera, beat Eddie Alvarez, somehow came back to the UFC to fight at home against Mason Jones in Des Moines, Iowa. Loses to Mason Jones, goes back to BKFC, fights Mike Perry, loses by 5th round TKO in BKFC, and now he's back in the UFC. I don't know how long this deal is. I don't know if he's on for a couple more fights or this is his last one, but Jeremy Stevens at 39, I thought his last UFC fight would make sense. It's in Des Moines, but he's back on a UFC main card to fight King Green. Again, I like it. It's an unk fight to veterans of the sport. I appreciate them doing a fight like this. Now, actually predicting the fight, Bobby Green's going to do nasty things to Jeremy Stevens. If this is either a 30-27 domination or Bobby Green's going to sit down Jeremy Stevens and knock him out. I'm going to go Bobby Green and knock down Jeremy Stevens in the first round and then eventually puts him away in the second. Bobby Green's still winning fights in the UFC. And say what you want about Daniel Zellhuber. Oh, Zellhuber's horrible. He's one of the worst fighters in UFC history. He may be, whatever. But Zellhuber's won fights, right? Like, if you want to see our absolute worst fighters in UFC history, I did a whole tier list on the channel. Just go to the videos page here on Greedo Plays MMA. We're doing tier lists every single week on the channel. But Daniel Zellhuber, again, not a great fighter, but Bobby Green breaks that guy. Lance Gibson fight. Weird short notice fight for Green. At the time, you're thinking, oh, Bobby Green barely gets by Lance Gibson. Gibson just dominated Chase Hooper in his last fight. So ultimately, that's a win that is actually aging very well for Bobby Green. Gibson's a very powerful guy. And Green, for like the 20th time in his career, has found a late career resurgence after losing back-to-back fights to Paddy Pimblett and Mauricio Hufi. We're thinking, okay, well, what other young up-and-coming guy are they gonna make Bobby Green fight? And I thought, the Lance Gibson fight was kind of just a fight to get Bobby Green back on the right track. It was a weird fight that got booked, 2 weeks before the fight, or a week before the fight happened in the final Apex card. But then they gave him Zellhuber, and that was again another fight where we thought, okay, well, Zellhuber's just supposed to go through Bobby Green. They're gonna use Bobby Green's name for another prospect, like with Paddy. Again, Paddy and Hufi were a little more established at the time, but when he fought, Grant Dawson. Again, Bobby Green, like in the Dawson fight, beats Dawson, beats Zellhuber, and now they reward him with a fun fight against Jeremy Stephens, two vets. I just don't know how Stephens is going to beat Bobby Green. Jeremy Stephens is getting outboxed by Mike Perry. He's getting subbed by Natan Schultz in the PFL. Mason Jones pretty convincingly beating him. And don't get me wrong, Mason Jones is really good. Mason Jones took no chances in that fight. Took down Jeremy Stephens and didn't really give Stephens an opportunity on the feet. Ultimately, guys, Jeremy Stephens has now lost 6 straight fights in the UFC. He has not won a fight in the UFC since he was the hardest hitting 145-pounder on the planet when he knocked out Josh Emmett back in February of 2018 in the main event. Since then, he has lost to Jose Aldo, lost to Zabit Magomedsharipov, lost to Yair Rodriguez, lost to Calvin Kattar, lost to Mateusz Gamrot, and then lost to Mason Jones in May of 2025. He has not won a fight in the UFC in 8 years. He's not going to get one against Bobby Green. Bobby Green is still very good for his age, and Bobby Green can still win fights like this. Shoulder roll, Bobby's going to jab, he's going to be in Jeremy Stephens' face all fight long. He's going to hit him with the 1-2, drop him in the first round. Stephens going to come back out of the corner in the second. Green's going to hit him with that same exact combo and put him down again. Oh, but Stephens has been doing BKFC. Bobby Green's going to leg kick this guy. There's a lot of tools Bobby Green can use in this, and I just don't think Green is scared at all of Jeremy Stephens. As well, I loved the way Bobby Green mixed up the wrestling against Daniel Zellhuber. Really threw Zellhuber off with those, basically just like tackle-esque takedowns that Bobby Green got against Zellhuber in Mexico. He will absolutely be able to do that to Jeremy Stephens as well. Stephens got taken down at will by Mason Jones. Green should be able to do it too. This is by far Bobby Green domination. Respect for Stephens for coming back to the UFC like this, but no, Bobby Green's going to dominate. Second round TKO for King Green to open up the main card. On to our next fight. It is a welterweight showdown between Sean Brady and Joaquin Buckley. All of these, top 10 contenders in the welterweight division continue to fight. We just saw Carlos Prates pick up a huge victory in Australia against Jack Della Maddalena. I was wrong about that one. I would love to see Prates fight for the belt next, but don't get me wrong, the fight should go to Ian Machado Gary. Also, Michael Morales is very deserving of a title fight. Well, the champion doesn't fight. The champion won the belt in November. He hasn't fought since. What are we doing? I assume he's fighting in August, but who knows at this point. Anyways, Sean Brady versus Joaquin Buckley in the welterweight division is a very fascinating fight. Sean Brady coming off a loss against Michael Morales, a fight that I thought it really was going to be a good one for Sean Brady. I loved the matchup, and I was just wrong on that one. I'm not going to, hide from that. Joaquin Buckley coming off loss to Kamaru Usman, a fight in which Buckley was a minus 200 favorite. Add that now to the list of the vets, the former champions pull off a victory, or the old guard pulling off a win against the young guard. Add that one with, as underdogs, by the way. Add that to Benoit Saint-Denis losing to Dustin Poirier and Aljamain Sterling beating Youssef Zalal, right? The Unks still got it type fights. Buckley fights Usman, and yeah, Usman dominates the bout. Buckley had nothing for Usman. And by the way, where is Kamaru Usman? I saw a rumor he's going to fight Dricus at 185. I can't imagine that's actually happening. And that's another guy, by the way. Usman should probably be getting a title fight. I don't think over Prates or over Gary or even over Morales, but maybe if the champion could fight, we could start doing a lot of these fights that are fun at the top of the weight class. Whatever. Buckley versus Brady, though. And ultimately, the name of the game for either side here is, okay, Sean Brady, can you take down Joaquin Buckley? Joaquin Buckley, can you stuff the takedowns out of Sean Brady? That is the name of the game of this fight. We do need to say, how good is Buckley truly, though? I don't mean that of like, oh, I haven't seen him fight. No, obviously. We've seen Buckley fight 16 times in the UFC. In terms of being a top 10 guy, how proven is Joaquin Buckley? Because his wins are Vicente Luque post-brain bleeding, Nursultan Ruzboyev, Wonder Boy, a 43-year-old Wonder Boy who he was down 2 rounds to nothing against in Utah going into the third. He knocked out Wonder Boy, sure. Wonder Boy was only 40 at the time, but 41. But a Wonder Boy at 41 who was beating Joaquin going into the third. Colby Covington, who took the fight on 6 days notice, 10 days notice. And I love Colby. He's my guy. You know, we will beat Chris Weidman coming up in RIF in like 4 weeks. But Colby's not the guy he used to be. Colby, you know, this is not prime chaos anymore. And that was also Colby who took a fight on 10 days notice to fight Buckley. And Buckley sure beat Colby with the doctor stoppage, and Buckley was going to win the fight regardless of the doctor stoppage or not. I will completely tell you that. But you beat an old Colby Covington, you beat an old Stephen Thompson, on top of that, you beat a Colby who was taking the fight on, again, a week's notice, and then you go fight Usman in a fight where you're a minus 220 favorite, and minus 250 favorite, my goodness, and Usman straight dominates him. How does Usman dominate him? He takes him down and holds him down. Sure, Buckley got the last round. You'll give him that because Usman just kind of stood with him, and Usman actually couldn't take down Buckley late in the fight. It felt like Buckley eventually figured out Kamaru in the fight, but couldn't figure him out in the first 4 rounds. Can Sean Brady take down Joaquin Buckley is the golden question for this fight. I thought that's what he was going to do against Michael Morales. He only shot one takedown and eventually lost. But the Leon fight was so dominant. The Gilbert Burns fight was so dominant. Hell, the Kelvin Gastelum fight was so dominant. Can he take down Buckley is the question. The answer I have is yes. I think he's going to take Buckley down the entire fight. If I'm Sean Brady, again, it's any way possible. I think this fight's going to be boring as hell. This is going to be on CBS, right? Because, yeah, it's going to be Amosov, Alvarez, Gautier, Diaz, Green, Stevens, and this will be the final fight on CBS. I think it's going to be a snooze fest. UFC wants Buckley to knock Brady's head off. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Sean Brady's going to wrestle him. I think Sean Brady's going to be pretty persistent on those takedowns. Now, I do need to say, like, how good is Brady's run? Okay, you beat old Gilbert Burns and just washed Leon Edwards. I get it. Leon Edwards, just wanted to lose the fight essentially at the end of it because he knew he was getting his ass beat. I understand. We're going to find out who in this fight's a true contender. I think it is Brady. I just think stylistically Brady matches up fairly well against Buckley just because of what Sean Brady's going to do in this fight. Sean Brady's going to take down Buckley, and I think Buckley's going to have a lot of trouble getting back to his feet. I don't think Brady's going to sub-Joaquin Buckley. I think, it's going to be just one of those fights where Brady's kind of holding on to positioning, making sure Buckley doesn't completely build back up, and if he does, he's just going to drag him back down. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be very uneventful, but, I've seen the dominant wrestling performances from Brady in both the Burns and the Edwards fights. I gotta believe it's gonna happen here. And I just watched Buckley really struggle wrestling. In all fairness, one of the greatest fighters of all time in Kamaru Usman, but I think Brady shows off the wrestling here and beats Buckley as well. I'm gonna go with the Philadelphia zone. Sean Brady wins by decision. He likely gets on the pay-per-view card in August. On to our next fight, the feature bout on this card in the heavyweight division. Alexander Volkov, Drago, takes on Salsa Boy, the Dominican, Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Phenomenal fight in the heavyweight division. Obviously, heavyweight's got a lot of moving pieces right now with the interim championship fight coming up in the White House with Cyril Gane versus Alex Pereira, the champion, Tom Aspinall, who knows when he will ever fight. We've got Josh Hokett continue to climb the ranks after beating Curtis Blades. He will be fighting Derek Lewis at the White House as well. But here's another fight between two high-ranked heavyweights, and Alexander Volkov, who was, Dana White promised to make it up to Volkov after he got robbed against Cyril Gane, yet Cyril Gane is fighting at the White House card for the interim belt and got a world championship fight against Tom Aspinall, and yet Alexander Volkov is fighting an up-and-coming Waldo Cortes-Acosta. I don't think Volkov was ever done right. I don't think Dana ever made it up to Volkov for the screw-up that was the decision between him and Cyril Gane. Volkov's look good. Now, again, the Jailton Almeida fight is very uneventful, but you can blame that completely on Jailton Almeida, who's no longer in the UFC. I will tell you, though, Rizvan Kuniev beat Jailton Almeida as well, and Rizvan Kuniev beat Jailton Almeida, I'd say, a little more impressively than Alexander Volkov beat Jailton Almeida. I just want to put that out there. I just want to say that. I'm not saying necessarily that Kuniev would even beat Volkov in a fight. Just putting that out there in the world. Because now Jailton Almeida is no longer a UFC fighter. Why did he sign with ACB? He could have fought Junior Dos Santos on the MVP card, and he said, you know what, I'm going to go to ACB instead. Respect, it's a tough place to fight, but why? Could have gone to the PFL too. Exposure-wise, I don't know why he went to ACB. It is ultimate high risk, no reward. I'll tell you that for Jailton. You prove, okay, you can go win an ACB, great. Why? Whatever. Anyways, Volkov coming off the Almeida victory. It's a close decision. Let's just say that. It's a close decision, but Volkov wins. I'm not mad at it, right? I picked Almeida, and, Almeida holds Volkov down for 11 minutes, but ultimately, does Almeida do any bit of damage? No. It comes down to the third round. Judges gave it to Volkov. I'm not mad with it. Again, I'll be honest with you, I did score it for Almeida just because I did not think Volkov did enough damage in those 3 minutes. In that 1 minute on the feet in the third round, but I was not mad by the fact that Almeida lost, right? I thought personally I scored it for Almeida just because, again, Volkov, neither guy did much damage in the third round. I get it, Volkov tried to do a little bit more damage, but it wasn't enough to swing 4 minutes of control for me. Again, not mad at the decision at all, though. Volkov wins. Again, he got royally screwed. They made it up to him, right? Because he got royally, maybe that was the favor Dana White gave him, because he got royally screwed in the Cyril Gane fight, right? Up until Volkov versus Gane, I kept running with the fact, it was a fact, that no fighter in history had ever outstruck Cyril Gane, including Francis Ngannou. Nobody had ever outstruck Gane. Ngannou, if you remember, had to take down Cyril Gane to beat him. Volkov became the first fighter to straight up outstrike Cyril Gane, and he got royally screwed with the decision. However, here we are, Volkov now back after the Almeida victory. Now he's getting the Dominican salsa boy, Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Cortes-Acosta has now won 3 fights in a row, beating Ante Dilia, beating Shamil Gaziev, and beating Derek Lewis. Okay, let's just say, how good are these wins, though? Ante Dilia is a really great win. It is. It's a weird fight, but Dilia just lost to Sergey Spivak, where he looked awful. Shamil Gaziev went great for Waldo, and yes, Waldo did embarrass Shamil. It was not close. Brando Pericic just went life and death with Shamil, so I will say that. The Waldo win over Gaziev was way more impressive than Brando Pericic, but Brando Pericic is a borderline top 15 guy as of right now. Waldo's in the top 3, but Waldo completely smokes Gaziev. Derek Lewis fight, not a contest. Now, D. Lou is sometimes at the point of his career, gets into fights where he just knows he can't win, and he just kind of just goes, okay, I'm done. And that's kind of what Waldo did to Lewis. I think that's what Josh Hokett's going to do to Lewis, even though I think, Lewis is going to die an honorable death in that fight. He's not, obviously, not, you get, that's a, what's the word? That's a phrase? Oh my goodness, my English. I'm blanking on what term that is in the English language. Lewis is going to, I think, go out on his shield is probably a better way of putting that. In the fight against Josh Hokett, just because it's on the White House and Trump's going to be front row. And there's only 7 fights on the card. But Hokett's going to definitely win. Now, again, the Waldo win over Lewis, it's great, but Lewis, Derek Lewis wasn't looking to win that fight, unfortunately. It was weird. Can Waldo beat Volkov is the question. I will tell you, go back and watch Waldo versus Sergey Pavlovich. You might think, well, that was 4 fights ago. Yeah, that was 8 months ago, though. Credit to Waldo, he fights all the time. Fought in August, fights in November against Dilia, fights again in November against Gaziev, and then fights in January against Lewis. He fights all the time. This is a very active fighter, and I respect that. Respect the hell out of that for Waldo. I don't think he's better than Volkov. I don't think so. Volkov is getting older. Drago's 37, but Volkov only loses to elite guys. Is Waldo an elite guy yet? Maybe, but I don't think he beats Volkov here. I think Volkov's going to outstrike him. Waldo's not going to take him down. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be a striking fight. I would be very shocked if Waldo Cortes-Acosta outstrikes Alexander Volkov. And MMA math doesn't work like this, but yes, Cortes-Acosta lost to Sergey Pavlovich. Volkov beat Sergey Pavlovich and embarrassed Sergey Pavlovich. Made it look easy to the point where Pavlovich was, pushing him after the fight because he was so mad. I'm going to go Volkov here to win. I'm going to go Volkov by decision. I think Volkov has better hands than Waldo. I mean, I witnessed Alexander Volkov outstrike Cyril Gane, who's like an almost untouchable striker, and we will definitely see it's an interesting fight between him and Alex Pereira, obviously, but I like the fight a lot for Volkov. I do. And he's a favorite for good reason. Waldo's good, but I don't think he's at the level of striking of a Volkov just yet. And we did just see Sergey Pavlovich 8 months ago outstrike Waldo to a 30-27 decision. So I have to go with Volkov. He's going to have a slight reach advantage against Cortes-Acosta. Waldo's used to being the bigger / taller fighter in fights. Volkov's 6'7". So it's just a little different of a fight for Cortes-Acosta. Is he faster? I don't even know if I can say that. I'm going to go Volkov here by decision. If Waldo wins, he's going to catch Volkov. But it's hard to catch Volkov, man. Only fighter to do it's Derek Lewis. So, yeah, I got to go Volkov here by decision. On to our co-main event. And I don't know, by the way, what Volkov does next. Because I'm telling you, he's not in a favorable spot right now. You have an interim title fight. And then you have Josh Hokett, who, I'm telling you, Josh Hokett is really close to fighting for the belt. So I don't know what they do with Volkov next. They're not going to do Volkov-Hokett. It makes 0 sense because why burn Hokett against a 38-year-old Volkov? Volkov, they're gonna make him fight like Rizvan Kuniev. I'm so serious. Like they're gonna fight. I don't know what they're gonna do with the guy. No, he'll fight the loser of Gone. He'll fight the loser of Gone versus Pereira. Anyways, co-main event flyweight division. Joshua Van, first title defense, one of the youngest champions in UFC history. Second youngest champion in UFC history, only behind John Bones Jones. Joshua Van makes his first title defense against Tatsuro Taira. Van wins the championship against Alexandre Pantoja, which, difficult fight for Pantoja, man. Just disappointing that, of course, the arm injury 30 seconds into the bout. We had the under, so I wasn't too mad, but sucked because Pantoja was on an all-time run, and Van just he did fluke his way to victory. But good for Van. He wins the belt. I mean, that's something that will never be taken away from him. He'll be in the UFC for years to come. He's only 24. He's already got 9 victories, by the way, at 24. We're talking about all-time wins, all-time most winningest fighters with potentially Holland and Oliveira taking over Jim Miller. Josh Van's got 9 wins at 24. Of course, it's harder to get, quick fights for Van like it is for Holland. Holland can fight all the time because it doesn't matter who he fights. Van being a high-level guy, it's hard to get consistent fights. At least like 4 fights a year. But anyways, Josh Van's got 9 wins at 24. Wins the championship. They'll never be able to take that fight away from him, and the championship away from him against Pantoja. But now he gets Tatsuro Taira. Likely the winner of this fight is fighting Pantoja at the end of the year. There is a fight scheduled currently in the Apex between Kyoji Horiguchi and Manel Kape. They're a rematch of their fight in front of 30,000 people in the Tokyo Dome in Japan and Rizin. Yet they're going to fight in a warehouse in Las Vegas instead. You could have just gone back to Japan. Just a thought. I don't know, but it's fine. You might have a Japanese champion after Saturday too, but don't go back to Japan. It's okay. Go keep fighting in the Apex. In the summer too, mind you. Van versus Taira though. Winner is likely fighting Alexandre Pantoja later in the year. We'll see. Potentially maybe Horiguchi or Kape could get that next fight. This is huge though. This is a fun fight between Van and Taira. I can break the fight down, break down previous fights, and I will, because I think there's some fights that are very important, but I will say right now, the fight comes down to if Josh Van can stuff a takedown at Tatsuro Taira. That's ultimately what's going to determine this fight. Here's the thing. I keep seeing people clipping clips of the Ray Tatsura fight against Josh Van. UFC 313, what is that? March of 24? Yeah, March of 24. 25. March of 25, that is. That's just last year. Ray Tatsura takes down Van a couple times in the fight. And the takedowns that Tatsura gets are kind of easy on Van, but you have to realize in that fight, Josh Van does stuff like 17 takedowns. Tatsura goes 4 for 21 in that fight trying to take down Joshua Van. But yes, the clips are out there of Van getting taken down by Ray Tatsura. Same against Cody Durden. Durden is able to take Van down in the fight. Van ultimately wins both of those. Josh Van does have the knockout loss to Charles Johnson, and people keep showing that clip as well as showing Van's not a great UFC champion, which again he fluked kind of his way to beating Pantoja. I understand. That doesn't really matter. Tatsuro Taira is not going to knock Josh Van out. Like, that's just not how this fight stylistically made. Now, I will tell you, if Josh Van fought either Kyoji Horiguchi or Manel Kape, I would take both those guys to beat Josh Van. It would be cinema. It would be fireworks. It would be, back and forth, crazy striking. Sure, it'd be great. I would expect either Kape or Horiguchi to win that, though, with Van. I just don't think Van's skilled enough to beat those guys in the feet. And again, I'm not going to take anything away from Van. He is a champion, but he did beat Pantoja because Pantoja broke his arm. It's not like he, outclassed him. It's not like he knocked him out. He won via an injury, which it happens. Like, if I'm not mistaken, Vitor Belfort won the championship off an injury and never got it back because he lost it right away in a rematch to Randy Couture, if I'm not mistaken. I believe so. I think. Or is that Josh Barnett? It might have been Josh Barnett. That was Josh Barnett. Did Vitor win it by... No, it was against... No. Randy beat Vitor. It was Josh Barnett who won the championship off of an injury to Couture, right? Sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but it was Barnett, right? No, Barnett actually knocked him out. No, it was Vitor. Okay, no, I'm not tripping. It was Vitor. Vitor and Randy fought 3 times? They did. I thought they only fought twice. Regardless, it's just Barnett popped for roids after he beat Couture, I think. Sorry. This is the fights I remember watching when I was like 8 on the Comcast on-demand feature on my television. Anyways, Joshua Van versus Tatsuro Taira. No one could ever take the championship away from Van, but I think he'd lose to probably Kape, and I think he'd lose to Horiguchi. Now, Tatsuro Taira fought both those guys, a little bit different. Like, I think I'd probably still take Horiguchi to beat Taira. It's just Taira's a lot different than Van because he just doesn't do the same thing. He wrestles. And the win Taira gets in his last fight against Brandon Moreno is phenomenal. Now, How much can we put into that? Because Brandon Moreno just lost to Loney Kavanaugh on a week's notice. I don't know. But the Taira win over Moreno is pure dominance. Takes Moreno down, takes his back, or flattens out Moreno and just starts punching. There's nowhere Moreno can go. Taira fight prior to that submitted Hyung-Sung Park. He did lose to Brandon Royval, and that is the argument for Joshua Van. Like, the argument for Taira is, well, Ray Teixeira and Cody Durden were able to take down Van. The argument for Van to beat Taira is, well, Brandon Royval outstruck Tatsuro Taira and dominated Tatsuro Taira on the feet for 25 minutes. In the wrestling exchanges, that's where Taira won. Ultimately, that's a 3-2 decision victory for Brandon Royval. He wins rounds 1, 3, and 5 on the feet, but rounds 2 and 4, those are Taira rounds. How does Taira win it? He takes Royval down. I thought it was a pretty clear, again, that fight is clear for me. 2 and 4 are Taira, 1, 3, 5 are Royval. It's a very easy fight to score. But the only way Taira can win rounds against Royval is when he takes down Royval. For Joshua Van did beat Brandon Royval. Just putting that out there. Ultimately, though, guys, I gotta take Tatsuro Taira. I have to. I gotta take Tatsuro Taira. I think Tatsuro Taira is a higher level fighter than Joshua Van. The run was fun for Van. He beat Bruno Silva, he beat Brandon Royval. The Royval fight was phenomenal. He did luck his way into a Pantoja win. He was going to lose to Pantoja, and I believe Pantoja beats either guy. I think the tougher fight for Pantoja is ultimately Tatsuro Taira. There is a reason, though, as a challenger, Tatsuro Taira is a minus 180 favorite. The way to beat Taira is you need to stuff his takedowns and you need to be able to just, go pedal to the metal on the feet against him. I will say, Joshua Van has the second part of that equation. Joshua Van can completely ramp up the pressure and overwhelm Tatsuro Taira on the feet. Undoubtedly can he do that. But the first part of the equation, can he stuff the takedowns out of Tatsuro Taira? The answer for me is no. I just don't think Tatsuro Taira is going to have much trouble taking Joshua Van down. And once he takes Joshua Van down, I do believe Tatsuro Taira is going to submit him. I don't think Joshua Van possesses the overall jiu-jitsu game to compete with a Tatsuro Taira, who's been doing this his entire life. Not to say Van hasn't either, but in terms of just take his back, get a takedown, take the guy's back, and submit him. That's all Taira's been doing for years, and that's how he tries to win all of his fights. I think it's a very difficult stylistical fight for Van. If he's able to stuff takedowns, he will win. But ultimately, that's what we have to look at. I don't think Van can do so. I'm going to go Tatsuro Taira and new flyweight champion of the world. I'm going to go second round submission for Tatsuro Taira. Eventually, he's going to flatten out Joshua Van. He's going to punch, and eventually, it's either going to be, you're going to get the TKO, you're going to submit him. I think he's going to flatten Van out. He's going to go for the rear naked, and he's going to sub Joshua Van. I do believe it is domination in the grappling exchanges for Okinawa's own and Tatsuro Taira and new Okinawa's own Tatsuro Taira and new flyweight champion, first Japanese champion in UFC history. Give me him versus Pantoja in Japan in November, please, on a fight night. Or just do Taira versus the winner of Horiguchi versus Kopp and let Pantoja get the winner of that. I would not be mad at all. Taira and new champion second round submission. On to our main event. Khamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland. It is a very fun fight. And I'm sure I have not been this excited for a build-up for a fight in a very long time. It's been a minute since I've been looking so forward to the, press conferences and the entire build-up to this card. I hope the UFC doesn't suppress it. And what I mean by that is the last time I was this excited for a fight week was Dricus du Plessis, Israel Adesanya. And I understand there were circumstances there where the fight was in Australia and the press conference came at a weird time. But I was so excited for du Plessis Adesanya, and it felt like to me the UFC did not promote that fight right. They did not give that fight the fight had potential to be, one of the biggest, selling pay-per-views of the year, and they just didn't promote it as such. Primarily because, the stuff du Plessis was saying about Izzy, he was right, by the way, about the dogs and whatnot and whatever. But the UFC didn't want that to be a mainstream thing, so they didn't really publicize it as much as they should have. We'll see of what they do here with Khamzat versus Strickland. And why do I say that? Again, the UFC didn't really want to. The stuff du Plessis was saying about Adesanya, again, were they factually true statements? They were. But the UFC didn't want that to be the main build of the fight. They wanted it to be, and also, by the way, the stuff Adesanya was saying about du Plessis, I'll show you where you're from. You're not a true African like I am, saying a word that obviously I'm not going to say, because I can't. But Strickland, the stuff Strickland's going to say about Khamzat, I mean, again, I don't want to get demonetized, so I'm not going to say what Strickland says, but that's going to be a big build of this fight. And Khamzat's, already said, like, I'm not going to put up with this. Like, wait till I see you in person. Sean Strickland has literally said he's going to be carrying a gun on him. And if Khamzat and his guys jump him, Sean is going to shoot. Yeah, the security needs to be, through the roof for this card. On top of that as well, I will put this out there too. There is a chance, and we've seen it before, there is a chance the president is in attendance as well. This is going to have to be the most secured UFC event of all time. With Khamzat and Strickland, there's a chance the president's in attendance. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this has the potential to be one of the craziest fight weeks of all time. The press conference, potentially Khamzat running into Strickland before the fight. I mean, they need to make sure these guys are as separated as possible. In terms of the actual fight, unfortunately, I don't believe the fight's going to live up to the pre-fight build. I will tell you again, the pre-fight build, this is going to be, as long as, again, we're able to see everything, and the UFC doesn't cut Strickland's mic like they did after he beat Fluffy Hernandez, for Strickland saying some things about Fluffy's coach. I'm not going to state. Just look it up. It's Strickland. It's an interesting thing Strickland was saying. I didn't really know about it before Strickland started talking about it. Regardless, I vaguely had heard about it, but anyways, you got to look into that yourself. The fight week hype up is going to be crazy. I just don't know if the fight's going to live up to it. Okay, Khamzat Chimaev, he's been dominant in his UFC career, right? Besides the Gilbert Burns fight where Burns gave him some trouble, Khamzat has not really... Usman did. Usman did actually give Khamzat a lot of trouble as well. I thought the fight was a draw. I keep forgetting about that one. But post-Usman fight, Chimaev has not had any trouble in the UFC, right? Title eliminator against Whitaker, takes him down and breaks Whitaker's jaw. Duplessis fight, takes down Duplessis at will. I will tell you, Dricus did take down Khamzat in the 5th round. Dricus did have Khamzat's back with 30 seconds. And, if I could change the outcome to one fight in UFC history, I might do it on that one. Duplessis submitting Chimaev. No, I would change Colby beating Usman the 2nd time. But whatever. Man, that fight still irritates me. In the first one, too. Anyways, Chimaev dominates Dricus, though. Dricus is one of my guys, right? Like, Dricus is, like, my top 3 favorite UFC fighters currently. I love Dricus. Fight's not competitive. I will tell you, Dricus never quit on himself. We talked about this last week, like Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev. Like, Della Maddalena was broken at the end of that fight. Dricus did not give up against Khamzat to the point where, again, there is a glimmer of hope in that 5th round for Dricus to submit Chimaev. But the point I was making earlier, there's a chance this fight's boring this weekend between Khamzat and Strickland. There is. There's a chance it's very boring because what if Khamzat just does to Strickland what he did to Dricus? Now, the hope, if you're the Strickland camp, and if you're Sean in general, is that Strickland's forward striking and his just, doing the man dance, walking the guy down, jab, teep, is too much for Khamzat, and eventually Khamzat breaks to the pressure and the forward pressure and just in general from Sean Strickland. While I would like that to be true, and I am hoping it's true because I will be cheering for Sean Strickland. I will be cheering quite a bit for Sean. We picked him at huge plus money against Fluffy Hernandez. That's another fight, by the way. Add that to Aljamain Zalal, Usman, Buckley, Poirier, Saint-Denis. Fluffy Hernandez, Sean Strickland was one of those too. We took Sean to beat Hernandez. I loved the spot at plus 220 for Sean at fight week. I just don't think he can do it to Khamzat. And here's why. Again, if he can stuff takedowns out of Khamzat, he will break him 100%. Khamzat's not going to be really, over. He's not going to be too tired in this fight because here's the thing. The takedowns are going to come easy, guys. And it's not like Khamzat's going to be completely overworked on the ground. He's not going to be. He's not going to be overworked on the ground at all against Strickland because what's Strickland going to do once he gets taken down? And in terms of pure getting a takedown for Khamzat, this is something that, again, when the minute the fight was announced, I was excited for it, and I was glad they made it. Above, like, Khamzat and Imavov. With all due respect to Imavov, this is the fight we need. This is the box office fight. This is the money fight, 100%. This is going to be phenomenal stuff. I can't wait. Unfortunately, most of the hype for this card does come with the pre-fight build, and does come with the press conference, and does come with what's going to happen backstage, or what's going to happen, in Newark at the hotel, and just backstage between Chimaev and Strickland. Yeah, that's a lot of this fight. Once they actually lock the octagon doors, if Strickland can stuff takedowns, or if Khamzat decides to do the man dance, oh yeah, we're going to get a crazy fight. Unfortunately, guys, Khamzat's not stupid. Chimaev's going to do what he has to win. He's going to do what he has to do to win. I mean, again, Chimaev, he's looking to hurt Sean Strickland. He's not looking to hurt him, though, on the feet. He's looking to hurt him on the ground. And ultimately, to win the fight, yeah, that's Chimaev's easiest pathway to victory. But the point that immediately as the fight was made, I'm going back to it here. When the fight was made, I was excited for it. I was pumped when Dana announced it on that, YouTube thing with it was Dan Hellie and Michael Bisping. By the way, why didn't Bisping cut his hair? He looks like 60 now. He needs to grow the hair back out. Anyways, I was really excited when they made the fight when it first happened, when they first announced it, but immediately I think to myself, guys, Dricus du Plessis was able to easily take down Sean Strickland. And it was a thing that we talked about going into the second fight where du Plessis doesn't take down Strickland in the second fight because du Plessis was just so much better than Sean on the feet in the second fight. But going into the second fight, we were saying, okay, well, du Plessis is going to win. I think du Plessis is going to make strides in his striking. And by the way, I perfectly called that second Strickland-du Plessis fight, but whatever. Fight went exactly how I thought it was going to go. But I said going into that fight, like, okay, if du Plessis needs it, the wrestling is there. Because we saw du Plessis take down Sean 6 times in the first fight. And most of those were just straight doubles. Strickland would try to use the fence to hold himself up, but du Plessis was persistent on the takedowns, kept driving forward, and eventually brought Strickland down. And yeah, Sean was able to keep the fight standing against Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy Hernandez, well, only shot 1 takedown, but yes, he was overwhelmed, sure. Fluffy Hernandez doesn't have the pure wrestling that Khamzat Chimaev has. Dare I say, he doesn't have the pure wrestling that Dricus du Plessis has. I think Fluffy's good. Is Fluffy, top 5 level, top 3 level, where Strickland, du Plessis, and Chimaev, and sure we'll throw Amosov in there, all reside? No. Hernandez is good. He's not top 4. He's not part of that top 4 crew that we have with these guys I just mentioned. I just don't know how Strickland's going to keep the fight on the feet. Guys, I'll tell you, I desperately hope Sean Strickland keeps this fight standing. I hope we get the man dance. I hope Strickland, is able to walk him down. I hope we see adversity from Khamzat. I want to see what happens when Khamzat's getting walked down. I want to see what happens. Can Khamzat fight back? I want to see somewhat of what happened in the Gilbert Burns fight in Jacksonville. 100% I'd love to see that. We have to set our expectations, though. It's not going to happen. That's my thing. Again, it may not be boring. Because what Khamzat does, it's like, Khamzat might get a finish early in this fight. It's just going to be underwhelming in terms of the pre-fight build and what we expect, potentially. And again, I'm not expecting much out of this fight because I know what Khamzat does. And I'm not going to, that's not a hit at Khamzat. Like, go get your money, go win fights. I hope it's a lot more entertaining than the du Plessis fight because Khamzat, yes, he had du Plessis in a crucifix for 20 minutes in that fight. Did he do much damage with the crucifix? No, he's throwing short, rabid punches and nothing's really happening. Du Plessis was a little messed up, but ultimately du Plessis was fine. And by the way, where is Dricus? I hope Dricus is fighting in July. We'll see. Amosov or Usman, one of the two, please. Or maybe he's waiting to see if Khamzat vacates after this fight because that's a potential too. But I don't think so because Olberg looks like he's going to be back within 9 months. However, I just don't know how Sean wins. Oh, I know how Sean wins. He has tough takedowns. I don't think he's able to do so, guys. This is a Khamzat Chimaev victory. And again, this is going to be underwhelming compared to what the build is going to be. Because there's going to be so much talk and Strickland's going to say, I'm going to walk you down. I'm going to do this and we're going to go to war, guys, for you guys. And if this fight's on the feet, it will be a war. It's not going to be on the feet. Khamzat's going to take him down. And I will tell you, and this is why I'm saying it might not be boring because what Khamzat does and the way Khamzat wins, I'm taking Khamzat by 2nd round submission. And here's why. Unlike du Plessis, and du Plessis couldn't get back up, sure, I feel like Sean's going to work his way back up more than du Plessis did. Du Plessis did get back up, but I feel like Sean, in getting up, is going to give up his back, like, I don't know, Petr Yan style, give up his back trying to get back up, like, Aljo Petr Yan style, and Chimaev will be able to drag him back down and get him in, backed up against the fence, and I think Chimaev's going to be able to neck crank him. To the point where Sean's going to have to tap. I think that's going to be the submission of choice. Chimaev wants Strickland to tap here. Like, putting him out with the rear naked is not going to be good enough. So Chimaev, like Conor McGregor, Habib style, is going to neck crank him and win the fight. That's my prediction. 2nd round neck crank submission for Khamzat. Because I think Strickland, again, the way Strickland gets back up, he's going to give up his back. And Chimaev will be able to, for better sense, mat return him. And in doing so, Khamzat's going to have Strickland's back. And I think Khamzat's going to win that way. I think it's going to look kind of like the Li Jingliang fight where he kind of, picks him up in that, back suplex position and kind of, drags him down. I don't think, again, he's not going to go for the rear naked. I think it's going to be a neck crank because I think just the way, I just think it's going to open itself up better than the straight rear naked will for Chimaev in this fight. I don't think he's picked up a neck crank win ever, but I just think that's kind of how this one goes. Oh, sorry, the Whitaker fight was technically a neck crank. It wasn't a rear naked. It was a face crank, but whatever. I think that's how Chimaev wins. I watched Strickland versus Duplessis. I've seen that fight happen, and I don't know how Strickland's going to win this one. I hope he does. I'll tell you that. I really hope Strickland's able to pull off the win. To me, it just doesn't seem all that likely. It doesn't. And then what does Khamzat do from here? I think Khamzat's going to go up to 205. I think he might force the UFC to make an interim fight just because he wants to go up, and they're going to have to do an interim him and Costa fight that's been booked before at 85. They might do that again, and then Chimaev will just run right through Ulberg to get the 2 belts. And that would open up the 85 division because I don't think Khamzat's fighting here for long. I think he's going to go up to 205. My guess would be then Imavov and Duplessis would fight for the vacant 185 belt. Maybe if Usman's back at 85, they could do Usman versus Duplessis for the vacant 85. I don't know. I do believe this, though, is Khamzat's final fight, 185 pounds. It seems like he's destined for 205, and that's probably where his future holds from here on out. I think, eventually, yes, Ulberg, Chimaev will be made, and Chimaev is looking at the Ulberg fight, and hell, even the Costa fight right now and saying that is easy work. Not to say the guys at 85 for Chimaev aren't easy work either. Like, these are wins that Khamzat could keep stacking up, but ultimately, he wants the 2 belts. He originally wanted the 2 belts at 70 and 85. He's now just going to have to settle for 85 and 205, and I'm telling you, the guys at 205 are light work for Chimaev right now. Ulberg, with all due respect, light work for Khamzat. That is a first-round submission victory for Khamzat. My only hope for this fight for Chimaev is, again, the way I think he'll win, we should be okay. I do not want to see a 25-minute humping session. I don't want to see it, okay? I'm okay off that. I am. I do not want to see what happened in the Duplessis fight. Go out here, take Strickland down, and look to finish the fight. Because we know Khamzat's going to talk crazy before the fight, too. Okay, go out there and finish the guy. I'm going to tell you, I hope Sean walks him down and TKOs him. I really hope it happens. I just don't see the pathway. He has to consistently stuff takedowns out of Khamzat, and it's important too. Super important. How does Strickland deal with the first 3 minutes of the fight? If he's able to go the first 3 minutes and keeping Khamzat on the feet, then I'll tell you, Strickland's a huge live underdog to play. Because if Chimaev can't get him down the first 3 minutes, maybe he does get him down for the final 2 minutes of the round, but he's already exerted all that energy in the first 3 minutes trying to get takedowns, and he fails on 3 attempts, and he gets the 4th, sure, but Chimaev's not a guy who can shoot 4 takedowns a round. He needs to get that takedown in the first or the second attempt, and if Strickland does see any bit of success and gives us any little bit of hope in stuffing those takedowns, maybe that's something Strickland can work on through a 25-minute pace. But again, I look back at the Duplessis Chimaev fight, and Drikas really struggled to, keep Chimaev from taking him down. The only success Duplessis had was in the 4th and the 5th round, stuffing the takedowns out of Chimaev. Chimaev successfully got his first 6 takedowns against Duplessis from rounds 1 through 3. If Duplessis can't stuff the takedowns against Khamzat, how will Strickland? That's just the truth. Khamzat Chimaev wins. I'm going to go 2nd round submission victory via a neck crank or maybe face crank victory for Khamzat. Again, likely, in my opinion, his next fight will be for the interim 205-pound championship against likely Paulo Costa. Folks, that'll do it for our UFC 328 predictions. Khamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland in the main event. I cannot wait for the fight week between Chimaev and Strickland, but again, we'll see what actually happens in the fight. Our prediction, Khamzat retains the title with Tatsuro Taira gaining the flyweight championship in the co-main event. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you just do the picks. We'll be back later in the week for our best bets on this card for Thursday. Next week, we're back in the Apex for Melky Costa and Arnold Allen and the MVP card. So we'll be back next week for 2 predictions along with our best bets later in the week for this card as well. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba forever.